All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. Today we're going to have a conversation about growing your business through networking. If you could, Lisa, just switch the slide. Thank you so much. I know you all know me, but for anyone watching the recording, I'm Stacy Aronica, realtor, mentor, coach with Bliss. And we're going to talk about networking. And so over the last 15 years that I've been in the business, about the last 5 of them, I've always loved networking, but the last 5, I have really turned it into being a lucrative part of my business and have been involved in about 10 plus groups, not all at one time, but over the last 5 years. And yeah, so I'm going to give you guys some great tips. Now, networking for some, I hear this a lot. It can be a little daunting for people that maybe don't typically like it, or it just maybe sometimes sounds a little intimidating. And I can say, being a very empathic person, this class today is going to be great for anyone, wherever you fall on the spectrum, whether you can relate to me when I say that, I'm empathic, all the way up to someone that's very, very outgoing. This is going to be for you no matter where you fall. And we could change the slide. So with networking, there are really 3 main different ways that you can network. And I encourage you guys to get involved into not just one type of group, but to have a variety. So whether that be business networking, for example, let's say the Chamber of Commerce. If you don't already know, there's a Chamber of Commerce pretty much for almost every major city in the country. And here locally, we have one for just about every city. And it's a great place to network, especially in our industry. That's an example of business networking. So that can be anywhere from a more casual business networking, which the chamber kind of falls in the middle, all the way to a pretty structured networking group, which would be BNI. So that's the Business Networking International Group, which is also wonderful. Mara has her own chapter in BNI, and that is going to be one where you're going to get a lot more structure and have a more formal setting. And then to like your more really informal groups, where especially with like the young professional networking group, a lot of times you'll see those groups, the meeting places, sometimes like a bar even. So there's a spectrum just for business networking. Then you can also branch out into recreational networking, where the organization itself is not necessarily based on the principle of, okay, we're here to network, but you can utilize it as a place to network and grow your business. So where a business networking group, everyone is going to kind of cut to the chase and talk about their business, exchange business cards, and a recreational group is not going to be that way. You will be able to, of course, share what you do, but it won't be as direct because that's not the intention. And then the same thing with service organizations. So that's where you're there for, of course, a very specific purpose for service, but this similar to a recreational group, you can, of course, network because, hey, you're meeting people in the community, like-minded, and that's where the recreational and the service organizations are great because you're already spending time in person with people that have similar interests as you, so it makes for a very organic approach to networking, though it may take a little bit longer because you're not going to get right to the point like a business networking. So for example, I was really involved in, this was before COVID and then things kind of shifted, but I was really involved in at the shelter, there was an organization called One Love that I was involved in. Every week we went to the shelter and we walked the dogs, and I really enjoyed that. And I got to meet a lot of people there. Did that for about a year, pretty consistently. And then I found out that the owner of the organization was a realtor too, but hey, it's, there's enough for everybody. And it was really fun. So that's just an example of a service organization that, when you're passionate about something, then you're going to make connections, regardless. So next slide, please. Okay, so you're probably thinking, how do we get started? For those of you that are new to networking or have not ever done any kind of business networking, this is where you want to start taking notes. So note takers are money makers. I recommend that out of those 3 different categories we talked about, that you choose about 3 to 4 groups, depending on your lifestyle and your schedule. And how involved do you want to be? Just know, we can change slide. Just know that the fewer groups you're involved in, that you can be involved in with like more frequent attendance, is going to make a bigger impact, and you'll have a bigger influence on that group. So for example, let's just say that you choose 3 to 4 groups, and those groups all meet once a month, then you're going to be going to about 3 to 4 networking events per month. And if that fits with your schedule and your lifestyle, then that's great. What I don't necessarily recommend is getting involved in groups that you're only meeting, let's say, once a quarter. That doesn't mean that those groups aren't good. Maybe there's another purpose that you may want to join a group like that, but there's so much time in between, and it's going to take that much longer for you to build rapport. And it's the frequency of meeting that helps, especially in our industry. In real estate, as you know, it takes time to build that relationship. So the more people can see you and you get in front of them, the better it's going to be. So fewer groups, more time in each group. Also, if you can be a board member or just get involved at a higher level in that group on maybe the planning side, the organizational side, however that group is structured, that is going to be really key. So for example, I was a board member of a group that I was in for about 3 years, and that really put me in a position to have a lot more influence on the group. I helped grow the group, recruit other members, and I ended up getting my first real estate transaction within less than a year of being a part of that group. And it was specifically because I was present at every single event. And that particular group, we had actually events 3 times a month. So it was very frequent. And that definitely attributed to me being able to actually close a transaction in less than a year, because of how often I was seeing everyone. So that's definitely key. Have a intention. So this is what I'm talking about. In my example that I can give is that I've always enjoyed networking, but it wasn't until I really started treating it seriously as part of my business plan that I started to see results. So it starts really simple by just having an intention of what groups that you're choosing and then what you want to get out of each group. So that can look something like certain, maybe education that you also want to get, or like we mentioned, like-minded, whether it's a personal interest group or a service, or that particular group aligns with your vision and your business plan. So you can get very, very choosy about it, and I highly recommend that. The more aligned you are with that group, the better it's going to be for you. And think of key players. So in our industry, key players would be any type of attorney, CPAs, financial planners, of course, lenders, and agents in other market areas. So maybe you're involved in a group that's Arizona specific and you're meeting people from Tucson, from Northern Arizona. Those, you would want to connect with those agents for referring purposes. So keep in mind key players as well. To prepare for networking, you will definitely want to have what I'm sure you all have heard of, an elevator pitch. Now, this is not a one size fits all. There's definitely different variations, especially when you are going to be, let's say, in a more structured business networking group like BNI, for an example. You're going to need to stand up in front of the group and actually present your 30-second elevator pitch. Sometimes elevator pitches are timed. They will literally have a timer, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, depending. And then all the way down to your just informal pitch where you're just one-on-one with someone in that mixing and mingling time during the networking event. And it's not going to be formal. It's going to be just if someone said, hey, Nicole, what do? You want to be able to quickly answer that in a clear, confident, and just way that they're going to understand who you are, what you do, and what value that you bring. So you probably are thinking, okay, what do I do for my elevator pitch? And there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. I recommend having 4 really clear lines if you're doing a formal one, and then having it down to literally 1 line, 1 sentence if you're doing an informal one. I'm not going to get into all of that right now because it would probably take 10 minutes just to talk about that, but we can definitely do some more Q&A at the end or off the call to get into the details of what the pitch would maybe sound like. What you want to think of though, when you're putting your elevator pitch together is, what is my value? Why should people choose you? So we have a great example from one of our team members, and we practice elevator pitches as a team. And this particular team member, she just really didn't want to do it. She just thought, well, this is kind of silly. Why do I have to do this? And didn't take it seriously, but did it anyway, coachable and teachable, right? Well, then she went to a networking event and was surprised that they asked everyone to stand up and present their elevator pitch. So she's explaining to me afterwards that she was so grateful that I had coached her to create this elevator pitch and that she did it and had it saved on her phone. So even though she just felt her stomach drop and was completely nervous, she was prepared. And she said, you know what, Stacy, there were at least 5 other realtors in the room, and I didn't feel like the one realtor that was unprepared for that. I felt like I presented myself in a way that's unique to me, that I shined, I showed my value. So that was just a really perfect example of why it's important to just have it done, save it. You never know when you may need it in that more formal setting, but always be prepared for that simple question. What do you do? Tell me about yourself, something like that. So when you are writing it, yes, you want to think about your value and you want to think about why people should choose you. So like in that example, there were at least 5 other realtors in the room. And as you know, we have, I think what's the stat, 70,000 or, something around there, agents in our area. Well, what makes you stand out? Now there is something, but you have to be able to clearly state that to someone and incorporate that into your pitch. So Blink, Popple, Linktree, these are just some ways that you can create an electronic type of a business card, which I highly, highly recommend. I'm not saying don't have regular paper cards on hand. Sure, always have those, but that's another way that you'll want to be prepared, because if you're just giving someone a card, that card is most likely going to get lost or go in the trash. As we all know, everything's digital. So if you can have them scan a QR code or text them a link that all of your info pops up, that's going to be the best way. What I personally like to do is I have my contact as myself saved in my phone with all my links, my photo. And so what I do is I will get that person's number first and I'll say, hey, let me text you my contact. So then my contact pops up and I have a little bit more control over what they're saving in their phone, versus if they're just typing it in off of a business card, et cetera, or you telling them what your information is. That's just what I do. But these other ones, Blink, Popple, I see them used quite often, and I recommend using one of them. All right, next slide. So now that you're prepared for your event or your group, we're going to talk about what do you do when you're actually there. So as you can see, the top line is in Spanish. So dar para ganar. I love how that sounds in Spanish. So it just sticks with me. So maybe it'll stick with you too. But it basically translates to give to receive, or give to win, or give to gain. So that's the intention that you want to have in networking in general. It should always be what you can give first, how you can help someone, not what you're going to get. So if you walk into a room and you're thinking, how many sales can I get, or who, what's the business that I can make from this? That's not the right mindset. When you're putting your needs aside and having the intention of meeting great people that you're meant to meet, that you are meant to help them, that you can be of service to them, then you are going to receive way more coming from that mindset. And so just keep that in mind generally. Being consistent, like we talked about before, the more frequently you can go to the same groups, events, the better it's going to be. And then be consistent in general. So like anything, guys, you've heard me or your other coaches say that any real estate activity, especially when we're getting started with it, we need to be consistent for at least a year to truly start seeing the results. It doesn't mean it will take a year to get your first transaction with that activity. It could, but it means it will take that to really make an impact in your business. So at the peak of, just for my example to share with you guys, at the peak of when I was doing the most networking, I was going to about 3 events per week. It was a little crazy. And I did that for about 18 months straight. I'm really glad that I did, because then COVID happened afterwards. So it was really perfect timing that I had so much time to connect with people in person at a kind of insane level. I'm not saying that you have to go to 3 events a week. I'm just saying that, it does take being consistent to make it work. So FORM, this is an acronym. If you're on my team, you've heard me mention it. Basically, when in doubt, form. So for those of you that are maybe a little bit nervous to network, or maybe get a little nervous in large groups, just don't think of the big group. I was just at a convention 2 weeks ago with 6,000 people. Even though I do a lot of networking, it can be overwhelming to be around that many people for multiple days. But if you think of it again from that place of give to receive, who can I be of service to? You're going to meet the right people. And when in doubt, meaning if you don't know what to say, think of this acronym. F stands for family. Now, you may not always use that in every business networking, but form can be used in any conversation with someone that you either know or don't know, and you can tweak it to the setting or to the environment. So F is family, O is occupation, R is recreation, and M is motivation. So what is it that they want in the terms of buying and selling? How motivated are they? Are they a buyer or seller? Or if it's someone that you're meeting at a networking group, what is their motivation in their business? So again, that's family, occupation, recreation, what they do for fun, motivation. So when in doubt, form. BAM-FAM is another acronym, and BAM-FAM stands for book a meeting from a meeting. Book a meeting from a meeting. This is super key because, and this goes into what I'll talk about in a minute, is the system. We can't just go into a networking event thinking like, okay, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna meet people, I'm gonna have fun, and then that's it. Yes, we wanna go meet people and have fun, but in order to take it from something that you're doing like a hobby or for fun versus something that you're actually doing to create income and impact, you have to have a system. And a key part of that is the value in the one-on-one. So it's really great to meet someone at an event. And if you meet someone that you're connecting with, that you just feel like, oh my gosh, there's a flow in the conversation. I like this person, but their vibe, their energy, there's great. Say, hey, I'm really enjoying the conversation. Why don't we meet for coffee or tea or whatever this week? What's your schedule like? Because we don't want to have a BFF at the events, okay? We don't want to stand and talk to one person for 25 minutes. We want to exchange. You can feel when you're talking to someone and the energy starts to kind of drop a little bit, there's a pause. That's the time that you're done. It's okay. You don't have to look around awkwardly, think of what to say. Just, you're there for a purpose. It was so great to meet you. I would love to continue this conversation and find out more about how we can collaborate in our business, something like that, exchange information, and then move on. And that next meeting is going to be where you are going to have the most impact in your business, is from that one-on-one. So always book a meeting from a meeting with the people that you really like. When you're talking with them, make sure that you are asking pointed questions like, who is their ideal client? Or how can you be of service? These are great questions to ask in addition to the acronym form. And then don't be afraid to also tell people who your ideal client is, because there's always going to be reciprocity. So ask them first, and then they'll probably ask you, and it will be a really great conversation. So then the follow-up. Okay, so we already talked about BAM-FAM, book a meeting from a meeting. After that, we have to have a system, and that's going to depend on who they are and how you can collaborate with them in your business. I would say at the minimum, you want to be following up with everyone every quarter, but there are some people that you might be following up more frequently. Let's say you meet this awesome new lender. Okay, well, you're going to talk to them way more than that. You're going to probably talk maybe once a week if you have a lot of buyers. So it really depends on who they are, but at the minimum every quarter. And you can definitely utilize your sync you just don't have to put them on a buyer seller drip, but you can still utilize sync for the lead management of that, or any other database that you may be using. The follow-up, again, is super important too. Just like any client, we can't just meet someone once, have one conversation. It's the follow-up, it's getting in front of them multiple times that turns into the business. So definitely keep them in mind. And another tip is, when you get all of the contact information. Let's say you go to an event and you have 10 business cards, or I was just at a convention the other weekend. I mean, we came back with like a stack. So you have to take time to actually put that information into your database. Don't just have a stack of cards. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. I still have the cards, but there were times when I didn't input them into anything and I literally had bags of cards that were just sitting there. I mean, that's not good business. So take the time maybe once a week and make sure that you are updating your database. All right, next slide. Okay, so we talked a little bit about conferences and conventions, but I'm going to get into the details of how that's different from just your local networking group. So we can go to the next slide for that. Okay, so different than a local networking group where you're probably going to meet, let's say on average, once a month. Maybe it's twice a month or once a week, but at least once a month. Your conventions and your conferences are going to be very different. They're going to maybe be twice a year, once a year, and be very, very picky about the ones that you're going to. Don't just go for the, oh, I just want to get educated, and no, because they're going to cost money. You're going to pay for a hotel, you're going to pay for the ticket, you're going to pay for your flight, and it's going to take time out of your normal income producing activities in order to be able to go. Sometimes you may be lucky and be able to get to go to a local, like we just had a Chamber of Commerce event the past 2 days here locally. That was it was a national event. It just happened to be here in Phoenix. So I was able to meet some of the people and participate, and it was pretty awesome. But that's not always the case. So be very, 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 very picky. Keep in mind that the purpose of going to these large events, even though there's going to be a lot of educational content, is the networking over the content, because you are getting in front of people that you would not normally ever be able to meet in person. Maybe you would meet them on Instagram or Facebook, but you would not be able to meet them in person. So you want to really take advantage of that. And what I mean by getting out of your bubble is not just your regular bubble, like what's your comfort zone. I mean, literally out of our Arizona bubble, because you will meet, business owners from all over the country that you would just not normally. And usually people that go to conventions are quite successful, and you can really align yourself with some great contacts. So I was at a convention a couple weeks ago as an example, and out of 6,000 people, it still doesn't surprise me, because this always happens, that you just meet the right people. So I happen to be speaking with someone who we had very similar goals, very similar interests, and just had amazing conversation. And then they introduced me to a lot of other people, et cetera, et cetera. So it's great to get involved if you have the time and money for it. And just keep in mind, the main thing is, yes, we can get kind of sucked into the schedule and the agenda, because typically these events have jam-packed schedules from early in the morning to evening with lots of different seminars, and to, of course, go. But remember, the purpose is going to be the connections that you would not otherwise make, because knowledge is everywhere, guys. There's podcasts, there's your coaches, there's trainings, there's so much available for education that by the time someone plans a speech and then presents it to a group, we're already 10 steps ahead, right? So focus on the connections when you go to these events. Next slide. Okay, so the third part of our talk today is starting your own group. Next slide. So if it's something that you're wanting to do, this is how you can get started. You want to first start from a place of serving a need. And when you do this, it should be as organic as possible, meaning like if you feel that there's a hole in the marketplace for something, no matter how niche, then why not create it, right? So it's not like we're sitting there one day and we're like, okay, let me start a networking group. You want to already feel the need for yourself and then step up, be a leader, be the one to actually implement it. So I recently partnered with a loan officer and started a group. It happened very organically. So I'll tell you the story so you know how easy it can be. We were in a seminar, an online seminar, and I went to it, like I said, for the purpose of networking, not necessarily the education. There were thousands of people enrolled, so even though it was online, I knew I was going to be able to meet people local to our area, and that was the purpose why I signed up. Then with that, it very organically happened that we were all connecting in this Facebook group, a lot of people locally in the Phoenix area, and then just started our own Facebook group. And then from there, myself and one other person kind of stepped up to the plate and said, let's organize an event. We organized an event, and then fast forward now, it's been multiple months doing this. Actually, the group grew to over 200 fairly quickly. And then we bring in about 30 to 40 in-person people to each event that we have. And we do an event once a month. And then we've done a few Zoom events too for members that are, or not really members because there's no membership, but people in the group that are in like Tucson or Northern Arizona. So that's an example. So if you start with seeing where there's a need and then just stepping up to the plate, being a leader, because as realtors, we are leaders, guys. So remember that. And then, yeah, go ahead, get it started. Create a Facebook group would be the first step. And create Facebook events for the events that you're holding. That way, it's a really easy way to share what you have going on. Make them public so that other people can see. It's shareable. Don't make it just private to the group. And then utilize Eventbrite and Meetup.com, because Eventbrite and Meetup act as, it will help you market, basically. So Eventbrite is, if you may have experienced that people can opt in to receive notifications for other events in their area. All the cookies, just like with Facebook and Instagram, like the cookies are saved so it knows what you like and what your interests are. So while you're in Eventbrite, it will pop, you'll have pop-ups about for what else you may like to do. So meaning if your event is in Eventbrite, people that have similar interests are going to see your event. And it's the same thing with Meetup. So you can post your event there as well. And those are ways to just help grow your group and help grow, and help the reach, reaching more people to come to your event. All right, so those are just some basic steps to get you guys started with a group. Let's see, I think that might be it. Yes, okay. So we ended a little early, but any questions on anything I covered? Big events, starting a group.
Stacy, thank you. No, I think this is great. And I'm just like you. I get all kinds of business from networking. And I had put it out to the group about even coming to my networking group. I mean, if you've never networked, that's a great time to just come and check it out. And it gives you an idea of how to even set it up if you're wanting to set up your own group. Um, BNI is one, but like you mentioned, the chamber, I mean, you need fun networking, but also business professional networking so that you get leads. But it's any form of networking is relationship based and it takes time, but you'll get business from it. So, you know, if it's hiking groups, if you're joining meetup groups, if it's like you said, serving in nonprofits, and because as you're building the relationships and people get to know you, it's in anything, people will refer you business. So, you know, if you're going to create your own networking groups, then you need the key players in there, and then it just grows from there. So, no, I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're wondering, like, where do I get started? Just think of, what do you like to do? What do you like to do? What do you enjoy? And look for those groups. And yes, do get involved in at least one or two business networking as well. But that would be just the basics of getting started to find your group. And hopefully the examples that I shared help too. I like to give personal examples, not to be like, oh, you know, this is what you have to do. It's just to say, okay, well, this is one way to do it. So since we just have two of you guys on right now, I just like to always ask, like, what's one thing that you've taken away that you're going to implement into your business this week, right? We don't want this to just be education that turns into you know, thoughts in our mind, like, how are we going to take action? So I'll start with Kat. What about you? What's one thing that you'd like to implement this week? You're on mute. Well, how about Nicole? You're on camera. So how about you?
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been kind of like nervous to get into networking groups, business ones specifically. So I know that I really want to like look further into that. I haven't done that for quite a while from my last jobs, but like last month I joined a pet shelter to just go volunteer, and I went twice, and I haven't really done it consistently. So I know that I need to do that more because they have events in the community like almost every weekend. And I think it would be a really great opportunity just to get out there and be comfortable talking with people. So I'm gonna get more on that.
I say
I
do
love
it.
that.
I think so. If you're uncomfortable, then that means you need to go to a business professional one. And
Yeah.
Even if that means you go with someone for the first time and then separate, go with a buddy and then separate, because going together and networking together is not going to be beneficial. But go together so you can say, hey, I'm not alone, but then walk away so you guys get your own leads. But bring, type up an elevator pitch, say, hey, I'm Nicole with Bliss, blah, 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 blah. But come up with something different. Like, I always look for statistics. Guys, if you don't know me, like, I sweat. I'm an introvert. And if you don't know me, I'm always in my house. So, unless I'm hiking or paddleboarding, like, to get me to leave, it takes a lot to get me I get sweaty and nervous, and networking gets me out there. But one-on-one with clients, I love it. So in fun it like start out with like a fun environment, like the BNI groups or business like chambers. They can be business professional, but you're having lunch, or it could be a happy hour. So it could change it up, even though it's a business professional. So you still have to introduce yourself, but then it's, if they're talking about themselves, then you learn to interject. And the more you're going out and introducing yourself, you get comfortable. And
Yeah.
and then it's just learning to talk about real estate. And then pretty soon you're like, man, and then everyone sees you and they're just talking to you about real estate. So, I mean, not to just cut Stacy off, but you just have to start putting yourself out there. If you're uncomfortable, then you just got to do it. Go to a Toastmasters group, because that's networking, and Toastmasters will teach you how to talk and not say and not say and not get through. If your fears are speaking, then Toastmasters is fabulous. I had to do it for a year, 2 years, and it's a great way to meet people too. So a lot of the networking events you can go for free for a couple of times and just check things out, and just go to my groups and pop in and meet people. You're doing it not to get leads, but just to get over the fear, right? And then go join a group or start your own group. But we do these classes so that you guys will get there, because it should be in your business plan for next year. Because in the right networking events and the night work, you will get leads, and you should get leads. The whole point of joining a networking group and paying money is because you're going to get leads from it.
Right.
And you're going to market. You could do, in some of my networking groups, I've been in too, just like Stacy. I've done, like, especially at the holidays, you can do a lot of holiday events for nonprofits, and you can team up with lenders and title companies, and like Safeway has nonprofits, so do the other grocery stores, and they'll even let you put in flyers into the grocery store bags for free. Like, all you have to do is go talk to the managers and say, hey, who's your nonprofit? Can we help market to that nonprofit? And then, oh, by the way, if we make the flyer, will you pass it out into all the grocery bags? Like, that's free marketing, you guys, but you just have to ask. And I mean, you do a food drive, do a canned food drive. Like, there's so many ideas at the holidays. There's so many, and this is a great time to give back to the community. And then it's also getting your name out there, and you're doing good within the community. So this is a great time to start getting involved in the holidays and meeting people and networking, and then warming into it, right? And then you start typing up and talking, coming up with your little 30-second elevator pitch, and then your 60-second elevator pitch of introducing yourself, because pretty soon you're going to have to start introducing yourself to people. So you're going to have to say, hi, my name is, and what company are you? And what's a good lead for you? How can people help you? Because as you're helping other companies, they're going to want to help you back. And it's a giver's gain. So anyway. But
Thank you. That's good stuff.
I'm at the vet's office right now, so that's why my face isn't on camera. But yeah. So I love networking. That's actually one of my biggest referral sources. Is networking and the relationships. So networking can be serving on community boards, city boards. It's all sort of, you're helping out a business grow. They're gonna, if you have a networking group at a restaurant or a bar or somewhere, they're gonna let you guys market there, and think of all those customers coming in, think of a hairdresser or a nail tech. Start thinking of all these people that you send business to, that they can send business back to you. That's networking. So anyway, I could go on and on, but I love that Stacy's doing this class, because networking, we could do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then your follow-up, like a bank. you start thinking of every person you come in contact in their database, and they don't even have to be in Arizona, you guys. So it's awesome. Like, do a food drive in a hairdresser's, do a food drive in a dentist. Like at Halloween, you guys, like, think of, it's a joke. The dentists are like, bring in your candy. Well, okay, so go gather all the candy and help out. Think of all the people that are at the dentists or orthodontists and help sponsor that, you know. Halloween parties in your neighborhood, you know, give out Popeye gifts, guys. Sponsor a trunk or treat. Like, start getting involved in your community. So anyway, we have tons of ideas. You guys have to just reach out. You know, you have great coaches, you have great leadership, so tons of ideas. So yeah.
Yep. Kat, how about you? What's one thing you'd like to get started with this week?
One thing I want to work on is probably going to be my elevator pitch. I have one, but you were saying have a more professional one that's like 4 sentences or so. I need to kind of condense it down for a much more casual one, the little 1 sentence, like, bam, this is my thing. So that's what I'm going to work on, is just kind of condensing it down to the very quick and simple, more casual elevator pitch.
Yeah, definitely have both. So you're prepared, and yeah, send them my way. I'll take a look, and we can practice also on our script and role play calls too.
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, we should all be doing networking in some way, because if we think of it as social media is a way to consistently get ourselves out there digitally, but we also have to have a way that we consistently get in front of people in person. You know, we need to always be adding to our sphere of influence, adding to our database, and doing that in a way that is organic and through the community is such a good way, because that's how we're going to have it, a more of an influence, because that leads to, okay, like we all have so many people in our phone list right now, in our email list right now. Well, how do we add to it other than outbound calls to leads, FISBOs, canceled, expired, you know, all the things, right? We have to continuously meet new people. That has to be a part of our business plan, to go out and meet new people all the time, and not just be dependent on the people that we already know to constantly feed our pipeline. So this is just a way to be in person, add to our sphere of influence, and be a leader in the community all at one time. And going back to, if you're nervous to get started, doing both, doing that fun, like you said, Nicole, like with the shelter, like I did the same thing, like I was saying, because who isn't happy around puppies and dogs? Like, that's just a happy time. I mean, you're gonna have fun and meet cool people and have good conversation, like you're around dogs. I mean, obviously, right? And plus the weather's getting gorgeous, so it's gonna be fun to have those events. And yes, the shelters do usually put on multiple events a month, or at least one a month. And then with the business networking, even though it can sound intimidating if you haven't done it, that's where you're gonna have support, because even though it's business, people have been where you've been, that it's your first time going. So people will be nice and helpful and make a point to introduce you, because that's why we're there. We're all there as professionals to help each other. So people will say, oh, Nicole or Kat, come meet this person. I want to introduce you to you. You might, you know, be able to help each other, or just they're going to be very inclusive, whereas like in a normal setting, recreational setting, you're not going to have that. Everyone's just there for their own purpose, whatever it is, fun or whatever. But so don't think the business ones are scary. They're actually, people are going to help you more in those. So just do both.
Okay, question, if you have a sec. You actually just got me thinking about it. So like when I was younger, both of my grandmothers, they would be in like assistance leagues, Kiwanis clubs, my grandparents, you know, Sir Optimus clubs, those types of larger groups, right? And I remember years and years ago I looked into it, but I never did anything with it. I mean, do you think that do you have any experience in any of those, or would it be worthwhile looking into?
I mean, I don't with those specifically, but I think that with any group, go to, well, first, maybe write out a list of all the groups that you're interested in attending. And then from that list, look on the calendar, go on their website, look on when those next events are, and put them on your calendar. And go to at least one or two of like events for all the groups that you're interested in. And then let's say maybe you had, you know, 7 or 8 on the list and you want to narrow it down to 4 or whatever it is for you that fits your schedule. Then after you've gone to 1 or 2 of all the different groups, compare that to your business goals and your business values and what is aligned with your maybe niche market or your goals, and then pick the top ones from there, because it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Thank
who
you.
you vibe with different than who I vibe with. So just try them out, and then pick the best one, but always compare it to not only how you like feel with that group of people, but which ones are going to be most beneficial to your business, right?
Thank you.
Sure. Great stuff, guys. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. So unless there's any other questions, we'll wrap it up and you guys will have the recording. If you need to go back through, feel free to reach out if you have any questions also.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. That was great. You're welcome.